Warning. Military software detected. Top secret clearance required.
Oh gosh, did I do something illegal? Red Alert 2 is easily in the top tier of most loved games by fans of Command & Conquer. Right up there with Generals. And it's easy to see why. It took everything people loved from the first Red Alert, except maybe the darker tone, see my last video, and multiplied it by 2. The crazy Cold War technology, the Red Dawn overwhelming invasion of communist forces, Tanya, and the soundtrack. Oh, the soundtrack. Now, personally, I've never loved this game quite as much as the rest of the fandom seems to. I like playing against the AI and offline skirmishes, and that experience was never quite as fun as other CNC games were for me. Also, the pace of Red Alert 2 matches tend to be quite fast relative to the other titles, and I prefer a slower pace and turtling. And I don't like that you can turn super weapons off, but you can't keep chronospheres and iron curtains with no nuclear missiles and no weather machines. But my own weird minor gripes aside, I'm not going to bury the lead. This game is just plain fun.
You're throwing everything you've got at us, Alex. We're supposed to be allies, you maniac. I'm the one that put you into office.
The introductory cutscene is a very different affair from the somber, black and white time travel assassination of the first Red Alert. Red Alert 2's opening cutscene is far more bombastic, but is no less clear a statement of intent. The Soviet Union, in the aftermath of its defeat in the 1950s in the first Red Alert, has become a puppet state of the Allied nations of Europe, stripped of nearly its entire military air force, and forced to place one Alexei Romanov, a member of the former Tsarist family, as the head of state. But the Russian bear has not been idle over the last 20 years since the last World War. Most likely at the behest of the mysterious psychic advisor known only as Yuri, the Soviet Union has secretly been building up its army and navy. And now, in the early 1970s of this alternate Cold War, the Soviets have set their sights on the United States. Although barely involved in the original conflict until the very end, the Soviets bear a grudge due to the US's logistical and financial support of the European nations. Furthermore, it's simply the best strategy to take out the now strongest member of the Allies first. And so the Soviets commit a massive amphibious assault across both the Atlantic and the Pacific, incredibly managing to attack both coasts of the US. The other Allied nations are forced to stay out of the conflict, as the Soviets have secretly built nuclear missile silos on their border with Eastern Europe, essentially holding a gun to the continent while the invasion of their American ally begins. When America tries to retaliate with nukes of their own, Yuri springs into action. He contacts the personnel in charge of launching America's nuclear arsenal, and mind controls them to launch the nukes while the silos are still closed, causing the self-destruction of America's entire nuclear arsenal in minutes.
Incoming transmission. Commander, I thought I'd seen everything, but this takes the cake. You guessed it, mind-controlled squid. Intelligence informs me that effective countermeasures involve specially trained dolphins, which are now at your disposal. What's next? Killer whales? Good luck, Commander.
It's no secret that Red Alert 1 is my favorite of the series because of its darker, more somber tone. And Red Alert 2 definitely takes a different approach to this alternate Cold War conflict. Sure, the chronosphere, Iron Curtain, Tanya, and Tesla coils were always a little goofy, but how about adding Soviet giant squids, Allied dolphins with sonic weaponry, cloning bats, psychic commandos, chrono legionnaires, and spies that can disguise themselves as dogs and cows, somehow. Remember the slow, desperate retreat across Europe as the Soviets slaughtered civilians? How about we start the Allied campaign with the Soviets destroying the Statue of Liberty? Or how about we make a key mission in the Soviet campaign about capturing the Eiffel Tower and turning it into a giant Tesla coil? Remember chrono tanks and Tesla tanks? How about Allied Mirage tanks that can camouflage as trees? And Soviet desolators who can irradiate an entire area as a standard tactical defense move? Sure, rocket troopers are cool, but How about flying rocketeers? And if you were bored by the Soviet arsenal in the first game, how would you like to have spider-like terror drones that can latch onto any enemy vehicle and tear it apart from the inside? Now sure, it's a lot goofier than Red Alert 1's tech. But here's the thing. I don't really mind, and I don't think most CNC fans did.
Why? I'm glad you asked.
Well, quite simply because the rule of cool abides. As goofy as it is, young Snowman was cheering at the Pentagon mission when the Allies finally had a base defense that could match the Soviet Tesla coils.
Yeah, Commander, I have something very interesting to show you. Please, bitte, I want you to take a look. You see, when Prism Tower X, it is placed close to Prism Tower Y, the energy produced by the central tower will be increased by a factor of X over Y times 2. Beautiful, yeah?
Yeah, Professor Einstein. Yeah, indeed. Look, I'm not going to pretend like using dolphins with sonic emitters on their backs to stop giant Soviet squids from capsizing my navy wasn't the coolest thing I had ever seen at that time. I can even overlook the ridiculousness of the idea of a successful Soviet amphibious invasion of the US on both coasts because Hell March 2 was playing over a Red Dawn-style paratroop drop, and that is just an inherently cool idea, no matter how you slice it. In my opinion, if Red Alert is going to be goofy, you gotta do it the way that Red Alert 2 does it. They do the goofy tone right. Nothing is ever so goofy without also being insanely cool. And to be fair, the game was not without its darker moments. Which brings us to...
Hear me, you foul American phantom, wherever you are. You can work your armies like a puppeteer all you want, but this is my play. Here is the city that you have saved. Without the psychic amplifier, which you so rashly destroyed, I no longer have much use for it. Behold, the power of Mother Russia!
Mission accomplished.
I must have played the Red Alert 2 Allied campaign a million times as a kid. I didn't play much of the Soviet campaign growing up. I'll be honest, Yuri always kind of freaked me out, and the mind control mission in New York was just too much for prepubescent Snowman. So I didn't complete the Soviet campaign until about a year ago, actually. Super fun. Would play again. But my point is that if you notice that this video essay is mostly focusing on the Allied campaign of this game, it's for those very reasons. I just have far more nostalgia and things to say about the Allied campaign. Maybe I'll do a video on the Soviet campaign someday, who knows. Anyway, despite being a lighter journey than Red Alert 1's Allied campaign, there still is an air of that desperation that characterized the first game, if only a little. The first few missions have you desperately trying to retake key American bases in recognizable American cities, just to get things like your Air Force back online. And let's not forget the mission where the entire United States government and Washington DC are mind-controlled by the Soviets, forcing a desperate American military to destroy the psychic beacon near the White House and rescue the president.
Incoming transmission.
Commander, whatever it is we're paying you, it isn't enough. I don't know how you got us out of this mess, but I'm extremely grateful. After this is over, I'm going to promote you to whatever you like, except president. Keep an eye out, Commander. I need you out there.
Mission accomplished.
And probably the darkest moment of the Allied campaign, when you successfully destroy a psychic beacon in the city of Chicago that was on the verge of mind-controlling the entire continent, only to find out that your victory is short-lived. The Soviet commander in charge of the operation has a nuclear missile at his disposal. Furious at the loss of the psychic beacon under his watch, he launches the missile, destroying the entire city of Chicago, just to spite you. It's a stark reminder that no matter how successful you are in this war, the mere fact that the Soviets managed to initially invade and occupy large swaths of the US at all is a failure that will ever linger and leave lasting collateral damage to the civilian population. And of course, there are other moments of horror. like the loss of beloved General Carville to a Soviet suicide bomber, codenamed Crazy Ivan. Boy howdy, was that a jump scare for Tiny Snowman. And I would even put the use of the Allied Chrono Legionnaires under this category. These Allied soldiers teleport around the map with man-portable chronospheres, and carry a gun that can erase any soldier, vehicle, or structure from history, given enough time. The very concept was disturbing enough to make one wonder why the supposed good guy faction is using such an existentially horrifying weapon. And the voice performance of the Chrono Legionnaires only makes one more uneasy.
Never existed. Their history.
The callous and often smug tone with which they carry out their godlike attacks. It leads one to question the sanity of those inducted into the Chrono Legionnaires.
Well, Commander, I have learned it is never a good idea to play around with the forces of nature. But with this evil Romanov running loose again, we have no choice. This weather control device provides very advanced manipulation of the weather patterns. These are God's toys, Commander. Use them wisely.
The technology in Red Alert 2, compared to its predecessor, isn't scarily just out of the prototype phase anymore. But what we lose in B-movie horror, we gain in super effective versions of classic technologies. The new Chronosphere is glorious. No glitches, no chronovortexes, and an effect that could teleport up to 9 units at a time. Just load up 6 tank destroyers and 3 prison tanks, let them gain some veterancy, and go ham on the enemy base. And hey, units won't teleport back to their original location after a period of time anymore. Win-win. The Iron Curtain, similarly, can make up to 9 units invincible, which now includes demo trucks, making for a devastating, if expensive, plan of attack. Or how about the Weather Control Machine? It was boring anyway to have both factions saddled with the same superweapon. Now, as the Allies, you can generate a lightning storm and destroy enemy bases with the power of nature itself. As mentioned before, the Allies now have access to the Prism Tower, which can chain its light-based attacks between multiple Prism Towers, delivering a devastating blow to whatever is at the end of the chain. Tesla coils can now be supercharged with multiple Tesla troopers nearby. From a gameplay perspective, balance has also been adjusted between the factions. Whereas before, the Soviets had all the good air units, and the Allies had all the good naval power, the dynamic has been shaken up in this sequel. The Allies now have the superior air force with the Harrier jets, but still retain a fantastic navy, complete with sub-hunting destroyers, the best anti-air with the Aegis cruiser, the oft-mentioned Dolphins, and the incredible aircraft carrier. But now, the Soviets also stand a fighting chance in the water. They keep their classic subs, but now they also have long-range ballistic ships called dreadnoughts, anti-air flak ships, and of course, the giant squids. In-universe, due to the Allies stripping the Soviet Union of its air force in the aftermath of the first Red Alert, the Soviets are forced to use only one key air unit, the Zeppelin of Death, the Airship of Pain, the heavily armored but slow-moving Kirov. You know, the Kirov might just be the most recognizable CNC unit in the entire franchise, and for good reason. This thing is heavily armored, very hard to take down, and when you hear it say,
Kirov reporting.
You just know you're going to be spending the next few minutes building as many anti-air base defenses, units, and vehicles as you can to prepare for the inevitable. Seriously, if you don't prioritize taking these things out, they will destroy every single structure in your entire base, up to and including your construction yard. These things do a crazy amount of damage. What can I say about the game's soundtrack that you don't already know? It is incredible. It has my favorite version of Hell March by far, as well as the coolest main menu theme of any CNC game except maybe Generals, and honestly, maybe just Frank Klepacki's best work full stop. Is it less desperate than the first game's soundtrack? Sure, but the Allies in this area are also less desperate too. Realistically, once Tanya takes care of the nukes on the Eastern European border with the Soviets, the European nations of the Allied forces join the fight in full force. And the United States wastes no time sending Allied forces into the heart of Moscow, as soon as a working version of the new chronosphere is up and running from its test in the Florida Keys. Let's face it, the Allies were the victor of the last war. And surprise attack or not, they are far more ready for a fight with the Soviet Union than they ever were before. And the soundtrack reflects this. You are going to win, and you will have one of gaming's greatest soundtracks as your background music while you do. The soundtrack is here to be cool, and have fun. And honestly, so is this game. It's not trying to be a gritty retelling of a world war. It's trying to deliver the most fun RTS experience it can muster. And I think that's why Red Alert 2 has stood the test of time. It knows what it is, and it wears it proudly.
Remember, we're still outnumbered 3-1, so we'll be marching everyone we can through the chronosphere and the Keys. Once they appear in Russia, they're all yours, Commander. Take the Kremlin, Commander. Let's end this war.
Now, despite all that praise, it says something that this game isn't probably even in my top 5 of favorite CNC games, and I still played this game more times than I can count growing up. It's a weird feeling just having pretty good feelings about a game that is largely seen as the greatest by most CNC fans. Maybe it's because I wasn't able to get as excited about this world as I was with Tiberian Sun or Red Alert 1, or because I didn't have as much fun playing Skirmish or with friends as I did with Generals or Red Alert 3. But hey, when a game starts like this, it's not hard to see why the CNC community loves it so much. This game holds a special place in my heart, and it always will. Thanks for watching. Oh shoot, now that I've made this video, that means I have to cover Red Alert 3, doesn't it?